right, so today we're diving into this announcement from GBIL-L08 about Jungle TV's future.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot of people talking, and instead of speculating, I thought it'd be good to just go straight to the source.
Absolutely. I think that's smart.
And break down exactly what's being said.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is really refreshing to see this level of transparency from a project lead. So often you just get vague updates or radio silence when things start to slow down for an online project. Exactly.
And that's why this is so interesting, because GBIL-L08 starts right off by addressing the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Declining activity. They're upfront about it, saying that Jungle TV's growth has stalled.
Right.
And it's not just a temporary dip.
Yeah. And what's interesting here is they're saying this decline isn't due to the crypto market.
Right.
They point out that the market's performing very similarly to how it has in previous years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like that's the culprit this time around.
Yeah, they're ruling that out. And they even go a step further to acknowledge that some of their own decisions as the leader of this project might have contributed to this decline.
Yeah, that self-awareness is pretty crucial. They talk about how they were maybe too focused on developer-centric features and could done more to engage the community directly.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance to strike, I think, especially when you're the developer and you're passionate about that side of things.
Yeah, it's almost like they're saying, hey, I might have gotten a little lost in the code and lost sight of what really matters, which is the people using the platform.
Exactly. And that brings us to, I think, another key point in the announcement.
Yeah.
The founders' waning motivation.
Right.
They're very upfront about the fact that their personal interest in the project has diminished.
Which is understandable.
Which is completely understandable.
3 years is a long time to pour your heart and soul into something.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a side project and you've got other things going on in life.
100%. And again, the honesty here is commendable. I think they could have easily made excuses or pretended everything was fine.
Right.
But they chose to be transparent with the community. And I think that speaks volumes about their integrity.
It does. And that personal shift in motivation, like you said, ties directly into another issue they bring up, which is staff burnout.
Yes.
They mentioned that other team members are feeling demotivated too.
And it's like a ripple effect. You know, when the founder's energy dips a little, it's only natural for that to impact the rest of the team.
For sure.
And you can imagine finding new volunteers to take on the load becomes much harder when the community itself is shrinking.
Yeah, it's a classic chicken and the egg problem.
Exactly.
Fewer active members, fewer potential volunteers.
Right.
Which makes it harder to maintain the energy and excitement needed to attract new people.
Precisely. And this leads to, I think, one of the most ethically complex points in the announcement.
Okay.
GBIL-L08 memo really grapples with whether it's even right to try to recruit new volunteers.
Yeah, when they, as the founder, are losing motivation.
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
Yeah. On the one hand, bringing in fresh blood could potentially revitalize the project.
Yes.
But on the other hand, is it fair to ask people to invest their time and energy in something that might not have a long-term future?
It's a real dilemma with no easy answer, and honestly, it'd be really interesting to hear from the community members on this.
Yeah.
What do they think about the idea of new people stepping up at this stage?
That's a really good point. It's a decision that shouldn't be made in a vacuum. Now, here's where I think things take a really fascinating turn.
Okay.
GBIL-L08 reveals something that might surprise a lot of people.
Right.
Jungle TV wasn't originally envisioned as this community-driven platform that it's become.
Interesting. This is where it's so valuable to actually go to the source material and dive in.
Yeah.
Because you get these insights that you might miss otherwise.
Exactly. So what did GBIL-L08 originally have in mind? So they described their initial concept as a much less moderated site running largely on autopilot.
Okay.
They even hint that it was supposed to be more in line with some other Banano projects that are less actively managed.
That's pretty wild considering how integral the community's become to Jungle TV's identity.
I know, it really makes you wonder how much a project can organically evolve beyond its founder's original vision.
Yeah.
It's a question that goes way beyond Jungle TV. We see it play out in open source projects, online forums, even social movements.
Yeah, it's a powerful testament to the collective creativity and ownership that can emerge online. But it also raises questions about sustainability.
Absolutely.
Especially when that initial spark fades.
For sure. So given all of this context, I think now it's time to dig into the plan GBIL-L08 outlines for Jungle TV's future.
Yeah, the plan they call zombification.
Yeah.
Which definitely caught my attention.
I think it caught everyone's attention. It's a very provocative term. And I think it sparked a lot more conversation than a traditional, like, winding things down announcement might have.
Yeah.
But what does it actually mean for Jungle TV?
Well, let's unpack those specifics in the next part of our deep dive.
Let's do it. It gets pretty interesting.
Okay, so we've established that things are changing at JungleTV. The founder's losing motivation, the community's less active, and the zombification plan is in motion. But what does that actually look like for the people still using the platform?
Well, JungleTV breaks down the changes into a few key areas. First up is the software development cycle. That's basically going into a maintenance phase.
So no more flashy new features or big updates?
Not exactly. The founder makes it clear that they don't have any plans to actively develop new core features for JungleTV. But there's a twist. They emphasize that developers can still create extensions using the JungleTV application framework.
Okay, so there's still a possibility for new things to pop up, just not from the core development team. It's like they're shifting the responsibility for innovation to the community itself.
That seems to be the direction, yes. Now, this next part might be disappointing to some longtime users. It's about JungleTV's famous events, those epic game nights, the creative challenges, all that. They're not going away entirely, but they are going to be less frequent.
So not a total extinction event, but definitely a scaling back.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense if they're trying to reduce the overall workload and reliance on volunteers.
Right. And JungleTV even suggests that maybe having fewer events could make them even more special when they do happen. You know, a little bit of scarcity can sometimes amplify the excitement.
That's a good point. Sometimes you don't appreciate something until it's gone, or at least less frequent. What about the moderation team? Are they still going to be around to keep things running smoothly?
They will be, but in a more limited capacity. JungleTV is upfront about the fact that the moderation team is shrinking and those who stay will be less active. This essentially means moderation is becoming more hands-off. They're putting more emphasis on users reporting violations themselves rather than relying on proactive moderation.
So it's like JungleTV is moving towards a model where users have more freedom, but also more responsibility for self-regulating their behavior. That's a pretty big shift.
It is, and JungleTV acknowledges that this could mean moderation decisions are slower and potentially harsher at times. It's a trade-off they seem to be willing to make in order to reduce reliance on a dwindling volunteer team.
And let's be honest, content moderation is a thankless task, especially when you're dealing with a passionate and sometimes vocal community.
Exactly. It's a lot to ask of volunteers who are already stretched thin and potentially losing motivation themselves. So looking at the zombification plan as a whole, it really does paint a picture of JungleTV pulling back, streamlining, and becoming more self-sufficient.
And this is the key takeaway from the announcement, they're not shutting down entirely.
That's crucial to understand. They're not pulling the plug. It's more like they're finding a way to let JungleTV exist in a less resource-intensive state, a kind of hibernation mode.
And this is where I think we need to connect what's happening with JungleTV to the bigger picture of how online communities evolve. Because it's not unique to them, right?
Not at all. We see these cycles play out all the time in online spaces. There's this initial burst of energy, rapid growth, a ton of activity. But then inevitably things start to slow down.
People move on interests, change, the initial excitement fades. And it can be really tough for communities to maintain momentum, especially those built around niche interests or something like a specific cryptocurrency.
It raises this crucial question. What makes an online community truly sustainable in the long run? Is it founder-driven passion? Is it community ownership? Is it a combination of both or something else entirely?
That's a question I think we'll continue to grapple with as more and more of our lives move online. And this announcement from JungleTV provides a really interesting case study in how those dynamics play out in real time.
It certainly does. And even though it might be a bittersweet moment for some diehard JungleTV fans, I think there are some valuable lessons here for anyone who's passionate about building and maintaining thriving online communities.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that even amidst all these changes, JungleTV makes sure to emphasize that JungleTV isn't vanishing.
Right. They're not shutting down.
Yeah.
It's more of a strategic shift, letting things run more autonomously, as they were maybe initially intended.
Yeah.
The core functionality remains. It's just the energy and the activity level are being dialed back.
So I like that they're choosing to frame this as a natural evolution rather than a defeat.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging that online communities, like anything else, go through cycles.
For sure. And this approach could actually be a smart move in terms of long-term sustainability.
Right.
By reducing reliance on a limited pool of volunteers.
Yeah.
They might be creating a more stable foundation for the platform going forward.
It's like they're saying, we've built something special, and now it's time to let it find its own rhythm.
Yeah, that's a really poetic way to put it. And I think there's a powerful lesson in there for all of us who participate in online communities. These spaces are constantly in flux.
Right.
And sometimes that means adapting to new realities, embracing different levels of engagement, and maybe even letting go of certain expectations.
Yeah, it's a reminder that nothing lasts forever in its original form. And that's okay. Change is inevitable, and sometimes embracing that change can lead to unexpected growth and resilience.
I couldn't agree more. And even though this news might be bittersweet for some dedicated Jungle TV users, I think it's also an opportunity to reflect on what made this community so vibrant and to cherish the connections and experiences it fostered.
It's like the end of an era, but not necessarily the end of the story.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe the zombification phase will ultimately lead to a surprising rebirth down the line.
Ooh.
After all, zombies have a way of coming back to life in unexpected ways.
I love that analogy.
Oh, right.
It's a reminder that even in the digital world, things rarely stay static. There's always the potential for change, adaptation, and even revitalization.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Jibal08ma's announcement, I'm left with a sense of thoughtful curiosity.
Yeah.
It's sparked a lot of questions about the nature of online communities, the challenges of sustainability, and the delicate balance between founder vision and community ownership.
It's definitely been an insightful journey, and I think it's safe to say that the story of Jungle TV, in whatever form it takes, will continue to be an interesting one to follow.
And for anyone listening who's part of an online community, maybe this prompts some reflection on what you value about that space and how you can contribute to its ongoing evolution, whatever that may look like. After all, these digital realms are ultimately shaped by the people who inhabit them.